Hello YouTube, this is Sara Bazzigaluppi. I'm an attorney here with the Chapman Law Group. We are a national firm that provides healthcare law services to healthcare entities and professionals alike. Welcome again to one of our informational videos. Today we will be talking about Florida administrative law and regulatory agencies involving the Florida Department of Health and the Professional Resource Network. Today we'll be talking about the Professional Resource Network, and I'm sure that if you found this video, you probably already know what you're searching for. But for those who are unaware, the Professional Resource Network, also known as PRN, is the Impaired Practitioner Program in the state of Florida that impaired practitioners are referred to by their employer or the Florida Department of Health. So let's dive right in. What is PRN? As I've probably mentioned to you before in some other videos, in Florida we have two impaired practitioner programs. IPN is the Intervention Project for Nurses. That's the program that is specific to nurses. PRN handles impairment allegations and evaluation and monitoring for all other types of providers. The vast majority of providers that I encounter tend to be physicians, whether DOs or MDs doesn't matter. But if you are a doctor and you are accused of being impaired, you are likely going to hear about PRN. The sad reality is that there's just not a lot of information about what PRN is. And the majority of the calls that I receive on a weekly basis are from providers that are simply unaware as to what an impaired practitioner program actually is and what PRN does specifically. In fact, I have some providers that even call me after they've discussed the referral with their employer, and their employer is not totally clear as to what PRN does. So what is PRN? Well, PRN, the Professional Resource Network, is a consultant to the Department of Health. That is established by law. So the law specifically states that is what PRN does. They provide advice to the Department of Health for anything that has to do with impairment. We also have to figure out what impairment means. And impairment is not a clinical diagnosis. Impairment is a legal diagnosis. It's a function of being. Impairment is legally defined as having a condition that renders you as a provider unable to practice with reasonable skill and safety. And that can be by reason of alcohol or drug abuse. It could be by reason of mental health disorder or impairment, and it could be by physical disability as well. So there's a vast gamut of what impairment actually covers, and therefore PRN's reach is vastly broad. Most people think that it only has to do with drug abuse and alcohol abuse, and for the vast majority of the time, those are usually the type of cases that end up in PRN, but I've had plenty of other cases that are referred to the PRN program for things that are unrelated to substances. So it's important for you to understand that when you hear the word impairment, it doesn't mean that you're being accused of actual drug or alcohol abuse. It could mean that something, your functions or the way you practice or the way you're behaving at work is raising concerns by your employer or coworkers or peers or even patients that you might not be able to practice safely. And if that's the case, you should probably call a lawyer as soon as possible. So what is PRN? Because PRN is the consultant, PRN is the one that will establish whether or not the person that is referred to them, the provider that is referred to them, is in need of any type of monitoring services. The department will follow the advice of PRN as their consultant. So the way cases usually go is like this. You're at work, you're a doctor, maybe you look sleepy that day. Maybe it's because you had, a bad night's rest. Maybe it's because you're there on call for an emergency. Maybe it's because you've worked nonstop in this COVID pandemic. Doesn't matter. If you look a little shaky, if you look a little groggy, if somebody comes to you and stops you from practicing and maybe even pulls you from schedule or from the shift, then be alert. Listen to that word. Are they accusing you of impairment?